Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. And tonight, grab your assault rifles and let's nuke some bugs as we explore Starship Troopers. How did I forget the name of this movie in the intro?
You should have heard the several names that Justine came up with for this movie. She's like, what is that movie again? Ship something?
Space
bugs?
Space
bugs?
All these weird
ball
names
bugs?
for it. Just because it's a weird name. I'm not going to lie. It's a weird name for a movie.
Starship Troopers, right?
Yeah, because they call them all troopers.
Yeah, Starship Troopers.
Get your gun,
And they're in a
trooper.
starship.
Oh.
Whoa. Anyways,
Jesus.
Starship Troopers.
Fuck yeah. It's a movie.
Oh, you're just gonna...
Oh, you want me to say... Starship Trooper... I'm just going to do the intro again.
It doesn't matter to me.
All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. And tonight, grab your assault rifles and let's nuke some bugs as we explore Starship Troopers. I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
I'm Justine.
And I'm Jonathan.
I was away from the mic. I had to run in real quick.
I was doing the second intro because the first one didn't take.
It's
No,
fine.
we're keeping the first intro. We're
Okay.
giving
I'm
it
going to
Good,
keep
good,
this
good.
whole bit, even like the countdown and everything.
Yes.
All right, good. Everyone will love hearing that.
So we've been doing a whole bunch of episodes, and I randomly just threw Starship Troopers at everyone, and that's what we did.
Yeah, we all decided, like...
Wait, wasn't it
yeah.
Mitch that recommended it?
No, it was totally me.
It was John.
Well,
but this is a movie that has been highly requested for us to do.
I would imagine just because this movie is really popular because a lot of kids grew up watching this on Sci-Fi Channel, like when it was before like the name change on Sci-Fi, when like they just constantly
when
played
it was
this
like
over.
SCIFI. That's when I watched Sci-Fi,
Dude,
but
some
now it's...
asshole was like, you can't have rights to the original science fiction term, and then made them change their name.
Yeah, so it's like SYFI.
Yeah, this is so stupid.
That's dumb.
I watched this movie as a child.
I've watched this so many times. My dad showed me this movie.
I remember the first time I saw Starship Troopers, I was in middle school.
Yep.
I was probably 12 years old or 11. The friend that I would bike to school with every day, I was on my walk home from school, and he was like, dude, have you ever seen Starship Troopers before? I was like, no, but that sounds pretty sick because I'm 12. And he was like, yeah, dude, there's naked chicks in that movie. And we were like, and I was like, well, why aren't we watching this right now? Like, what I don't understand. Then he
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
let's go watch it. And then I watched it and it was awesome. And I was very young.
That's hilarious.
But
That
yeah.
was a cool thing about this movie is the way they represented nudity is it like wasn't a big deal.
No, it wasn't.
Like
Not
I
at
feel
all.
like
at
every
all.
time I watch a movie, they make a big deal about the fact that somebody's naked,
Yeah.
or especially if a man and woman are naked in front of each other. But in this case, you got men and women showering in front of each other, and like no one talks about it.
Nope, it's
Like,
a lot of
they don't give a
camaraderie
fuck.
too.
yeah, and it's great.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like there's a whole society in Starship Troopers
Yeah,
that we
which
can
is-
discuss
yeah.
here because that's really what it creates, and it does a lot of other interesting things too.
But before we get into that, I'll just go over some production notes. Wow, transitions.
Nice. What's a
so-
transition?
What are those?
Starship Troopers was released in November 7th in 1997.
Late 90s movie.
Late 90s movie.
It's actually the year I was born.
Same here.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like a couple months.
Uh,
It was released in the USA. The director is Paul Verhoeven. You may recognize his name from the RoboCop series.
Yes.
yes.
So same distinct violence
Yeah.
that you see in it.
And satire.
Yes,
and
very
parody.
much. Oh my God, yeah, 80s. The 80s is full of that.
The writer was Edward Neumer, based on the novel by Robert A. Heinlein,
is also
which
very
Mitch
good.
read.
I have read that book.
I've read that one
and,
too.
and I know we can't not talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But we'll get to that.
The movie was produced by John Davidson and Alan Marshall, and the production company was TriStar, Touchstone, and John Davidson as well.
Very much a mainstream movie.
Yeah, this was like pushed. Starring role, we have Casper Van Diem as Chin, Johnny Rico. He's just a chin.
Wait, what's it?
No, I'm just
Are
saying.
you just making a joke
I'm
about
making
his
a
chin?
joke. His
Bro,
chin.
he is the Chad meme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before the Chad meme.
Yeah, before it existed.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
He goes from private to corporal to sergeant in like a day.
Yeah, it really is like a day,
Like,
huh?
yeah, or like 5, but still.
Yeah, that's true.
We got Dina Mayer as Dizzy, the chick who don't get none for a
I mean,
while.
she does.
She does
eventually.
eventually. Denise Richards as Lieutenant Captain
Yeah,
Carbon Combiner.
everybody recognizes her. Everybody knows who Denise Richards is.
All of these actors and actresses came from like 90s TV series
Yes.
and stuff like that, and they were all pretty
Wait,
people.
wasn't she
Very
on
much.
912.0?
Fuck, I actually don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think her and Dizzy were.
I didn't follow Denise
It-
Richards
it's
as closely.
90210.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know the 90s. I was born.
Well,
cusp.
it's an area code.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it's the area code for like Beverly Hills.
Yes.
or
Yeah, that's what it was.
something. Yeah, 90210.
We have. Oh, really? That's your name, dude? Jake Bussey.
No way.
Bussey. Wait, how's it spelled?
Busey.
Are you sure it's not? Are you sure it's
Bussy?
not Busey?
Yeah, Busey.
My mind
No,
has
it's
made
Bussy.
it Bussy.
It's Bussy.
Bussy is Private Ace Levy with the biggest fucking smile, dog.
The guy who looks like a shark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tall dude with the fucking platinum blonde hair.
Yeah, that's a guy. That's a shark.
Oh yeah, I was like, this looks like a shark.
You're gonna get those bugs?
Ang,
Rico?
gang, 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 gang.
Yo, Rico,
Yeah.
trying to play some
He's
ball.
got some chompers right there.
Dude knows how to play the violin.
Also
too.
knows how to play the
He
violin.
does shred that thing,
Yeah,
too.
he does.
Mhm.
Neil Patrick Harris as Colonel Carl Jenkins.
So
I didn't even realize
young.
that was Neil
He's
Patrick
so
Harris
young in
until
this.
Jonathan told me.
He has psychic powers in the movie too.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Like he like controls his ferret to fuck up or like pester his mom, and then eventually like they're like, yeah, you're military intelligence. You're very psychic. Patrick Muldoon as Lieutenant Xander Barkalow, Clancy Brown as Private Zim, and then Michael fucking Ironside as fucking Lieutenant Gene Roscock.
Who's fucking dope?
Yeah, fucking sick.
Yeah, no, that's like, yeah, no, he's cool. I like that. I like that character a lot. Like,
This movie's testosterone.
Surprisingly, not as much as you might think, because they have a very nice mix of the men and women who are also in charge most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's more along the lines of they weren't dealing with sexism as much as they were classism
Yeah.
between the troopers and what they called citizens. In order to gain your citizenship, you had to be in the military.
yeah, this
You're good.
this doesn't necessarily like, because the source material this is based off of
Yeah.
is a little bit more detailed, but this movie is much more straightforward and skips a lot of those finer details
Yeah.
about their society and stuff. So in the movie itself, it is military service is how you gain citizenship, and that's pretty much it. And then there's like other things you can do, but you have to serve the society.
Just to round out some notes, the budget was $105 million. It made $121.2 million in the box office.
Nice.
So it got a lot of sequels that sucked, apparently.
They're fucking awful, but you know, if you want to see some of the same
They
characters,
are bad.
the only one who I think is recurring is Rico.
Oh, okay. Of course.
And then I think one of the other ones dies, and then I think Neil Patrick Harris is like, I don't want to do these
Yeah,
movies because he was doing other stuff.
I
so.
got to be on How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Also, random note: if you want to see a hilarious movie with Denise Richards, she's in a movie called Tammy and the T-Rex, where her boyfriend gets implanted into a T-Rex animatronic that she still continues a relationship with.
That's hilarious.
It came out in fucking 1994.
Oh, that's awful.
So prior to this movie, so go and watch that weird movie.
And if you want to watch this movie, it has a runtime of 2 hours and 9 minutes.
It's a
And you
long
could
movie.
check it out on Hulu, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime. Currently.
Too long. Also a fucking movie that's too long. They could have just skipped to the action. Not gonna lie. Really.
Okay, I will agree with you there.
Yeah.
As I got really bored the first hour of the movie.
Well, because they want to push the idea that you want to like care about these people, that you want to care about the main characters, but all it really was is building up this romance where she dumps him anyway. So it's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really didn't need to make this that
Yeah.
long.
I
They-
think the beginning too was a little too comedic for me to say that this is like a
Interesting.
backstory sort of thing.
Oh yeah,
like
that's
I know
fair.
backstories can be comedic, but at the same time, I feel like the comedy was sort of the emphasis of the beginning section, and so me wanting to care about the characters was a little bit lost. You know,
They're very one-dimensional, one note.
Yeah.
Rico's strong and he's hard-headed. That's why he's in like the infantry.
they're
Sucks at
very
math.
yeah.
Oh
they're-
right,
Sucks
yeah.
at math.
They're all very simple archetypes of the characters they're portraying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whoever made it was they were dealing with certain things really heavy-handedly. So they were like, check it out, capitalism, propaganda, and they're like, and they just showed you those like really heavily, like in the commercials they had, where they're like, how are
Right.
you doing your part for like killing the bugs,
Would
which
you
are
like
also
to
really
know
funny.
more?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are
Why
funny.
we fight?
Well, the crazy part about that is the director looked at Nazi propaganda and used same
Yeah, which is nuts.
same like verbs and words in those things to
Yeah.
like be used as satire for it because it's this is like technically quote unquote perfect fascism that the whole world is underneath.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, right.
That's something that was always interesting to me about Nazi propaganda is, I mean, it falls into a certain category of propaganda, and it's not like the Nazis were the first ones to do it, but they're the most modern representation of this sort of like subtle brainwashing done well. You know, you say the right things to people, you invoke the right feelings, and they'll believe anything, and they'll fight for anything if they believe it hard enough.
That major like appeal to pathos.
Yeah,
like, just
and
your
like
emotions.
You know, that's something we saw recently, especially in the presidential elections for the U.S. Is this representation of fascist propaganda that was just everywhere.
It's still relevant too, which is kind of wild because it came
Yeah.
out in '97. So you're like, oh, we're still dealing with a lot of similar
it was
things.
prevalent during World War II. It was prevalent in the Vietnam War. It's prevalent today in our societal sort of war that we find ourselves in.
So something that this movie does very interesting, which has been touched by other people who've analyzed it before too, is that the movie kind of, in a way, tries to seduce you into accepting fascism.
Yeah,
in a sense, it tries to seduce you in a very hilarious dark comedy sort of way.
Well, yeah, they want you to support the idea of them joining up with the Starship Troopers to fight these bugs because, like, they're obviously bad. They just destroyed their hometown. Like, their parents are fucking dead.
They've been launching meteors at Earth.
So
like,
they give them a combined enemy that they can all work towards, and they completely gloss over the fact that there's certain elements in their society that work really well, as in, like, having the mixture of men and women in their army is, like...
They show you that.
They
show
but, like...
it to you, but they don't explain
They don't
that.
talk about it as much because they're focused on other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've created this world where they're supposed to be together, but they have those moments where they're like, you can't be a citizen unless you're in the military.
And that's the thing. They didn't really focus on like human to human things. They're
Yeah.
past that.
Yeah.
And like the director, he even reportedly said like, people asked him, why are you doing a right-wing fascist movie? And he said, well, if I tell the world that a right-wing fascist way of doing things doesn't work, then no one will listen to me. So I'm going to make a perfect fascist world where everyone is beautiful. Everyone was picked in this movie because they were beautiful, not because their acting was good.
I can tell.
Yeah, everyone is shiny. Everyone has big guns and fancy ships, but they're only good for killing fucking bugs.
Yep. Yeah. That was a lot of, I think that was one of the bigger concepts was that the people who are joining up, they don't give a fuck about these guys. The trainer, the guy who's their drill instructor, doesn't give a shit about any of these troopers.
He's like, oh,
breaks
yeah.
a dude's arm, throws a knife at another one. Like, really doesn't care that someone got shot in the head. Like,
Like, the thing about this movie is they really show that a lot of times when people enter into any sort of war territory, they decide to serve in whatever military, is the military is their job, and their job is to be a body.
yeah.
And to be commanded and do what they're told to do. And I think that's something, I mean, no offense to people that do go into the military, because it's not an easy thing to do, I know for sure. But, like, it's still, you're kind of just a body. Like, who you are doesn't really matter. All that matters is how you serve the collective.
Right. Well, that's, what's his name? Rico, his parents get into that idea where they're like rich as fuck, and they're like, why are you going to join the military? Like, you don't need citizenship. We're rich.
I know.
Go to Harvard.
I loved all of the commentary about the war industry, basically.
Yeah.
How they kind of prune people from a young age to be in this sort of
recruiting them from straight out of high school.
Yeah, like there's even a comment that the dad had made to his son where he was like, oh, that recruiter came to your school and filled your head of all these ideas, and now you want to go away to war.
I think it should be illegal for some guy to use the school as a recruiting station.
Yeah,
and I believe that 100%. There should not be recruiters in high schools.
Like those ROTC programs.
Yeah, because kids are vulnerable and susceptible to anything people tell them. Even like older kids who are like 16, 17, 18, you're still growing. You're still very susceptible to the information you're given. And if something is painted in a certain light and you don't have the comprehension to really like critically analyze it, you're going to like think it's the best thing ever.
Right.
Because I had that period too. When I was younger, I wanted to join the military, mostly because I wanted to fly jets, because I thought that's a really cool thing. Of course, there's other ways you can do it. But then I started to really think about what the military is and what they're going to be asking of me if I were to join the military. And it's not something that I, at this point, support. But in my young age, in my young dumb mind, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I get to be like a sky cowboy.
They do get at a lot of the concepts of why people will join up in the military, because it usually comes with the promise of something. In this case, it was full citizenship and their like idea of what it meant to serve their country, like the glory and the prestige of being in the military. But then he gets the really harsh reality of learning that he gets to be a trooper, like on the ground as a grunt, and go straight into the violence. And then
the meat grinder.
Yeah. Oh, they even say it. He's like, more fresh meat for the grinder, and the dude's missing all his limbs. He's like, this made me the man I am today. day, and I was like, oh shit.
yeah.
There's also the aspect of like emotional attachment, because our main character was going to leave the military, and then after he found out his whole city was wiped out, including his parents, he now had that emotional attachment to the cause.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why a lot of people join the military, is because they have
hand
that
you a
emotional
gun
attachment,
unless you
know?
do something about it, or at least they think they can do something about
They
it.
give you the tools at least to feel like you're doing something about it.
Yeah.
One looked over scene is well, it is the shower scene, like you said. It's intersectional, and they filmed that scene, which was really funny. None of the actors felt comfortable unless the director and cinematographer got naked.
That's hilarious.
So they got naked with them.
Oh my
behind
God.
the camera set with them. But that's just like a fun little.
So they
thing
were
that
just
did.
behind the camera naked.
So they were just like, we don't feel comfortable with you guys being the only two clothed people. in
Oh,
here.
gotcha. Okay.
So they're like, fucking Paul Verhoeven, he's like a Swedish dude. He's like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get fucking.
I do spas all the time. This is chill as fuck. Let's
Yeah.
go.
That was always something, just a little side note, that was interesting to me, is different cultures and their perception of nudity. Like us Americans, like getting naked is such a wild thing, but like
Right.
so I was in this performing arts group, and we would travel across the country on a tour bus, and we would have to shower like in public places like a YMCA. And one place we went to, there's another traveling group there as well. And all of the Americans on my side, like half of them were cool with being naked, and the other half were wearing like bathing suits into the shower because they were insecure about nudity. But before we got there was a bunch of girls from the Netherlands who were in the showers, and they were everybody like tits out, naked, just chilling. They would just be like sitting around chatting,
Yeah.
tits out, like it was no big deal. And then everyone's looking at them like, oh.
Should we get naked too? Like it's like a
Yeah.
very big thing.
Oh, that's funny.
But in that scene, one
They're
of the
talking
guys,
about
one of
some
the guys,
interesting
he's
stuff.
like trying to become a journalist.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm trying to like get my journaling license, so I need to be able to get stories.
Oh.
So why the fuck did you? Why,
That's a good point.
why
They
the
talk
fuck are-
about their life goals. Why did
Yeah.
they join up?
One of them
asks.
says that she wants to have babies. I guess you need a pregnancy license to be able to have kids.
Ooh.
Another one says she wants to be a politician. And she's like, you know what that means? I gotta serve a little.
A quick look into what it takes, and in most cases, you can use the military as like a stepping stone to go to other things. People use it to pay for college and things
Yeah,
like that.
and that was one of the guys.
Yeah.
He said that he was trying to get into a bigger school, and he can't afford it, so
Yeah.
he just rides the wave of free college.
Yeah, this is
Another
that
sad
fascism
thing.
they're living in.
Another sad thing about the military is most of the people that end up going into the military are from poor families.
Yeah.
Because they want a better life, they go into that so they can get higher education for cheaper. They also just get the general recognition. I mean, think of how many politicians served in the military at some point and where that got them.
Yeah, exactly. They ended up making those connections as they were going through. So there was a lot of stuff that they included in those small moments of like, why are you going to do this thing? Also, hilariously enough, I think this is also, so many people watched this when they were younger. This could honestly be the precursor to why they ended up liking certain characters in movies, because you had these archetypes of what you were watching in these films, and they represented a lot of like what people were looking for in that time period. Because like the late 90s, you're dealing with that's like the Bush era, isn't it? Where he was like really big, like making a lot of propaganda for the military because
Yeah.
he wanted to go to war in Iraq.
It was post-Vietnam,
9/11.
9/11,
Yeah.
Middle East, Iraqi war, which we all know wasn't necessarily about fighting terrorists.
Yeah,
it
so
was
they're-
much
Well,
more
they,
about
they did have the Gulf War.
yeah.
Let's not forget that. The
Yeah.
war
Yeah,
that
the
a lot of
Gulf
people
War
look
as
over.
well.
Yeah, that's
So-
true actually, because it wasn't something they threw in your face as really violent. It was an occupational war where they stayed there and outstayed their welcome for like 20 plus years. So it's like, this is something you don't really talk about.
And then Rico's the guy that's there for a girl.
So yeah, so Rico ends up being this sort of like hollow character where like
Sam?
you don't really give he joins
He's a
up for her
Bill Sam.
because she's there. He even wants to go to the same area, and then realizes that she has like a conversation with him where she's like, I actually want to have like a career. Like, I don't want to be in a relationship, and it like dumps him, and then
Via like video call.
yeah.
And then, sorry, I'm away from the mic again. And then that's when he decides to leave the military because
Yeah.
he gets like dumped by his girl, and he's
Well,
like, I have no reason.
He's
to
kind of
leave."
responsible for a guy dying too.
Well,
but,
it was a combination of things, but I think that was sort of what set him off because you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
he fucking sees a guy die, he gets whipped, and then his girl leaves him.
Okay, so that entire section is a lot.
Yeah, they do a lot of
They
shit.
give him squad leader.
Yeah.
And then they do a training session, and like Diz tells him to do the moves that he did in high school,
Right.
and he does them, and he executes it well. So then they're doing a training with live rounds, and eventually one of the characters trips, and one of them took off their helmets because it malfunctioned. And this is the first time you see gore in the movie, other than the bug cutting scene on the
Oh, right. Yeah.
in in the beginning. So you just notice like, holy shit, this is a training thing, and you died before you were even on the fucking ground. And eventually, like he's going to leave, but there's a section where Carmen's ship hits the meteor that does hit Buenos Aires.
Yeah, it's the same one.
So the thing is, like, the flight path people could have put that on there intentionally to start the war with the bugs. So it hits and it gets sent to Earth so they could have enough propaganda to be able to invade another country.
Oh, I would not be surprised about that at all. That actually fits in well with their world.
I'm pretty sure that even in the book it's alluded to that the attack on Buenos Aires is like staged in a sense.
Woo.
So it's alluded to in that one as well. So
fascist
that's kind of
moments.
crazy to think about because this is pre 9/11 where everyone was convinced that one of the largest running theories is that it was just too unlikely that this would have happened and it had to have been monitored. And so they're like, yeah, George Bush did this to start war.
Well, I mean, kind of the whole purpose of that Middle Eastern war was so people would have control over the oil fields because oil was basically where the money was at.
I mean, they eventually figured that out. The initial idea was that they supposedly had some certain weapons that were dangerous to everybody. And
I ain't never seen them.
As the years went on, they realized, oh, you actually just wanted to have stakes in the oil companies in this region. So that's where it became more
Even though
clear.
there's oil in America here.
And
It's
there's
kinda
actually a lot of other really interesting concepts that are sort of, I want to say like a conspiracy as to why we decided to invade the Middle East. I don't know if we have time for that, but it's kind of interesting. I only found out about this recently. So there is a theory of something called a Stargate.
Oh my god!
Yeah, fuck
okay.
yeah!
This is wild.
So Stargates are essentially wormholes and portals to other dimensions, other worlds, other
We've passed the
spaces in
threshold
space.
into wild conspiracy theories. I love
And
this.
there are several Stargates that exist on the planet. There's supposedly
man.
around 12, at least, that people know of, and they all coincide with ley lines, which that's a whole other topic. But ley lines are basically energetic grid points on the planet. And people believe that they found a Stargate that was in, I think, Afghanistan or Iraq or something like that, which is part of the reason why they invaded it, is because they wanted to search for it and gain control over it. And that's why there's a lot of military interest in that area.
It makes you wonder why when these movies come out that they use certain titles for the names. Like Stargate came out.
Uh-huh.
Now I look up Stargate, I'm not going to find any info on that.
There's another interesting
thing about
thing about Stargate is I forget his name, but he was some military official that was featured on the show as himself.
Ooh.
He never made any commentary about it, by the way. But this military official was also one of the ones that was supposedly overseeing the Stargate operations.
Shoot.
And he showed up in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. The Pyramid of Giza is a power plant.
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind it. Not enough time to discuss it here, but definitely look into ley lines, Stargate, and monuments such as the Pyramids of Giza. Most pyramids in general.
makes me
actually.
think of,
while you're at it, check out the Nephilim, because supposedly they found one in Afghanistan a while back in
I
2002.
actually
Oh my
saw
God, bro.
I saw this YouTube video. This guy who's named I forget his name, like something Ballin.
Yeah.
He's a ex-Navy SEAL that does YouTube videos about strange and mysterious things that happen. And he told a story about when he was in Afghanistan.
The red-haired one?
Yeah, the giant one. There was this mountain that had a lot of tunnels in it, and he said that there was a troop that went up there into one of the caves in the mountain. And out came this giant. He said that he had like red hair. He was over 10 feet tall, probably closer to like 15 feet.
Speared a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, he had a spear, and he was dressed sort of in more like, I'd say like caveman, like a loincloth sort of thing. And he threw a spear at one of the dudes and killed him, and they eventually of course shot him and killed him.
I heard it took majority of those rounds though.
Yeah, like it wasn't easy to take this dude
Oh
down.
my god.
And they took away his body. Like they of course had to report what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
Somebody came to get the body, and they were like, okay, don't talk about this, like this didn't happen. But of course everybody that was there and heard the story is gonna remember it.
And that's the thing, when I was looking into that, they if you look up like, did that really fucking happen, there's no evidence.
Of course, there's
Yeah,
any
they're
evidence.
not gonna tell
It's a
people
Men in
that.
Black type
Yeah,
situation.
it is.
You don't want people to panic.
And
if
so
you
when this
start
guy
saying
came out in
monsters are
2000,
real.
when this guy came out in 2002, everyone was like, "God, just throw it under the rug." But supposedly now he's coming out and just being like, yeah.
There's so many things that are becoming questionable and then a little too real when you get sort of declassified documents from certain government agencies.
man.
We just got the
I've been
UFO
looking into
stuff.
a lot
You're
of
just like,
interesting
what?
stuff.
We just got the UFO files. It told us nothing.
They were
Yeah.
basically like, yeah, they exist, but we don't really know.
Well, like,
You're just
I
like,
feel
oh.
like the files they shared are only the files
Yeah.
that they could share.
kinda
Because, of
wild.
course, there's a ton of stuff that no one gets to see unless you're one of those officials.
Yeah, look up the Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But to circle back, since we are talking about like giant monsters and aliens and stuff,
Right.
we should talk about the design of the bugs,
Which
in
is
this movie.
fantastic. It's
Oh,
got to
yeah.
be the precursor to so many other ideas that came out in video games and media. And I think they wanted to make something that was dangerous, like the most dangerous thing you could encounter. Like they even comment on how shooting off a few of its limbs, it's still effective at killing you.
Yeah.
And you had to like focus in on this one area on its head.
I love that too because it's sorry, I'm gonna keep calling him Barney because I'm used to him being Barney from
It's-
How I Met Your Mother.
It's so weird to see him in this, especially after seeing him in other things like that.
Right.
But he's like the smart guy of the
He's
show.
like, go for the nerve stem. It could take it down in a few shots. And you're like, none of these infantrymen know this information.
yeah, they didn't tell them that. No, they didn't tell them that at all. You're just like, wait, why didn't they do anything?
They're using full clips
Holy
and doing minimal
shit.
damage against these arachnids, and they look terrifying. They have pincers and everything. And then you got the giant bomb beetles.
They don't do better until they join the Roughnecks
Yeah.
group where the guy actually knows how to kill them. And then they start doing way better during that time period because they're not just like rushing in and standing in a single line and not moving. You know, and so, yeah, so they could come into this cool. I think he's like my favorite character because he's just so fucking ridiculous and
Michael
badass.
Ironside.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like see after reading the book and then watching the movie and stuff like that because I saw the movie first and then I was like, there's a book.
Yeah.
Oh, hold up, like, and it was written in like 1958.
Yeah.
What? Like,
The
you're
concepts he came up with at that time, way ahead of whatever they had thought of.
Yeah,
So it's like
definitely.
crazy science
Yeah,
fiction.
He gets a lot of there's a lot of controversy surrounding that book as well. A lot of people think that it's like a pro-fascism.
Yeah, they thought he
book
was
or
glorifying it.
something. And I was like, and I don't think that it's satire either. I think it's just sort of like this is what it is. This is the society as it is.
Right.
Because then the next book he wrote was much more like left-leaning society.
Well, he was basically
and it's very
predicting what would
interesting.
happen in a world where the military becomes the prime like directive for everyone on
Yeah.
Earth. This is what would happen.
Yeah, if you were to try to create like I don't know, like some weird it's still a democracy that they live in the book anyway. It's still a democracy. You don't necessarily have to pick up a gun and go shoot people. You
Yeah.
can show up. They even like in the book they say like if you want to show up in a wheelchair and you're blind, we'll have you like count caterpillars or something. We'll find a way for you to help
Yeah.
regardless, and then you can get your citizenship that way.
The thing about this is these guys are completely naive because they're in the infantry.
Yeah.
So when they go into their first endeavor on Kalendathi, that's how the movie starts.
Yeah.
They show the guy with the camera talking, it's a terrible planet. It's a bug planet.
That's so
and this is
funny.
a propaganda video. And they show this guy getting capped on like
Oh,
major
yeah.
screens around the entire world. And then like you get to that point where you see it in first
Right.
person.
Well, they're spending a lot of time making it appealing to join the military.
Right.
Like you're doing something great by joining it.
And I feel like that's kind of how a lot of people get indicted into the military
Right.
is
Yeah.
they think that they're fighting this noble cause.
I think it's Call of
And-
Duty.
Yeah, it makes me think about a lot of times like the sort of things that they tell people in the military is they really try to embed this idea in your head that you're fighting monsters.
Yeah.
Even if we were to talk about like the Vietnam War, they definitely dehumanized
Oh, yeah.
the Vietnamese, the people that they
You
were
you
fighting.
could look at all the terms that they had for like some certain groups of people.
Yeah, and they might as well have been the way they portrayed them in the war, like insects. Just
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
they talk
Oh,
about
yeah,
them in this way.
definitely.
They're not human. They're
that was
creatures.
the
Ooh.
heavy-handed metaphor they had here was that usually they will place you into a mindset where the person you're fighting is not human.
And then it makes them a lot easier to
Yeah.
kill. You know, we don't think twice about stepping on a bug, but we would think twice about stabbing another person.
Absolutely.
But if that
Yeah.
person is not a person in your mind, it becomes a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
And
They're-
then you become a killing machine, which is
Yeah.
essentially what
gotta-
the military does.
I got to make a quick reference to a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
I
talking
know
about.
exactly what you're talking about.
They
yeah.
they implant chips into military people, and it makes them look at people and think that they're monsters.
Yeah.
And they end up shooting a bunch of them. And dude removes the chip and figures out that they've been shooting innocent people the whole time, and then that's the story.
Oh.
And you're just like, yo, fuck.
Yeah, and then
you're
he-
watching it.
He's just broken after
Yeah.
that too.
But that's the same kind of idea that they're
that's
getting
the thing.
at.
When they get on here, they're like expecting, yeah, I'm gonna eat those bugs up for dinner and shit. We're ready. Like,
but they get wrecked as soon as they land.
Yeah, I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all.
So funny that they were like white as fuck, and we're supposed to be from these Latin American countries, even from Buenos Aires. Like I know like some people are kind of blonde and blue eyed, but they were very white.
I think it's because the
they got more spread out.
There's that. Yeah, it's like the world is now one like global federation thing.
Also,
yeah. And it's sort of yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, so technically, this movie is guilty of whitewashing because Juan Rico in the book is a Filipino man.
Yeah, he was different,
and he likes to wear earrings.
Oh.
That's the thing in the book. He's like, I really would like to wear jewelry. With
he wasn't such a Chad.
Military doesn't really let me, but I've always liked it. And then he's also like, most women in their society were like pilots and stuff like that. They were way better at that. So
they were a lot
dudes
smarter.
were like grunts and stuff.
Speaking of race theory, though, there was an interesting part in this movie. It's when the main character got one of his members killed during training.
Rico?
Yeah, and then they have the scene where he's being whipped as punishment.
Yeah.
And I just noted that it was a black man doing the whipping, which is a huge role reversal, but just really interesting on their play on roles and what we consider to be I wouldn't say normal, but just what we would expect from a scene like this.
They also allude to the fact that their drill instructor did some sus shit too, because he's like, bite down on this, son. I know.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. He's been through the same sort of punishment.
Well, because corporal punishment is like one of the central parts of their society as well. Like they like firmly believe that corporal punishment isn't. There's like an entire that's why I love the classroom scene in the opening so much, is because that's a good relation to kind of what the book does in the earlier parts of it, where Rico talks with his professor or his teacher about stuff. So they discuss what is a juvenile delinquent? Who is actually at fault, the delinquent, or is it their parents who didn't discipline them well enough? And then it goes into the analogy of the puppy, and when the puppy does something wrong, do you smack it? Or do you if you just smack it randomly every hour, is it going to learn anything?
Yeah.
So and it goes into those big philosophical concepts, and the movie doesn't have as much of that in it, but I was happy that they tried.
Yeah, they had a brief moment where he explains it, and they really got at the idea of the benefits that they would get for joining the military and for serving, because even the teacher, he doesn't have his metal hand as a teacher. He only gets it in the military.
Yeah.
So it gets taken away from him even after serving. Wow. So it's these are the things that he gets from a benefit from it.
So also an actress from Golden Girls is the professor that's teaching them that they're
that's
superior.
right.
Yeah. And then she's these are the superior species. They know no fear. They
oh my god.
They don't understand death.
One thing I noticed too with the role reversal was that when they fuck up and they get 100,000 killed in 8 hours.
Oh, the new Sky Marshal?
The new Sky Marshal is a black woman.
Yes.
And she's we need to be precise about this. We need to...
I love that. In order to understand the bug, we must know the bug. And you're just what is the bug? And she wants to...
And that's when Barney, since I keep calling him Barney, but Neil Patrick Harris's character comes in and he's all right, I know more about this than all these other guys because I'm in the secret military intelligence.
Yeah, he's basically
an SS
secret
officer.
intelligence.
That was another thing too, the secret intelligence, because that's totally a thing.
Yeah,
that is actually
absolutely.
In the military. People think psychics is just some sort of mystical fairy tale sort of thing. No, fucking psychics are real. Everybody's psychic.
They've
just
been
not
studying that
everybody
for
is,
so long now.
As emphasized, but again, I've came across videos from this man who was an ex-military member. I think he was an ex-Navy SEAL or something, some sort of high-up government official. And he even talked about how he went through somewhat of what somebody might consider to be psychic training. They were taught certain tools and methods to help them suppress pain to become more aware of their surroundings, be able to sense somebody's intention, that sort of thing. It's a very real thing that happens, and not enough people talk about it because, it's not something that's publicly obvious,
Right. And that's the thing too, when they were training to see which kind of branch they would go into, Barney or Neil Patrick Harris's character Carl, he's A1 on the guess the card. Oh, it's Ace of Spades. Rico does it, fucking flops hard.
I love that he has a pet ferret.
he has that too. He has that one moment where he's I sent you guys on that op. Yep. I have to send people on ops all fucking day because they don't know what we're actually doing, and I can't tell you anything.
Oh shit!
But I send people, grown men and women, to their death every day in the hopes that we could get this done because they have the agenda.
I mean, that's a big part of this society as well, is that it has become more so about like Murray and Justina both said, it becomes more about less about the individual, more about how does this like suit the rest of us, like how are you serving everyone else around you. And it's like one part of the film that kind of explains this is when they're like, hey Rico, how you doing? I'm alive, but I have a few dead men. And so the idea with this, that what I'm getting at is that is more upset that people that were around him died rather than him. He doesn't care if he dies. He's just like, but my men died.
Right.
And that's the kind of like, that's like sort of, and this is all very militaristic. Like this is militarism thinking.
Right.
This is not how like, because when you're in that world, it's much different than when you're just hanging out with your buddies and, going to Walmart to work or something like that. It's a much different world.
Well, I mean, Michael Ironside has that quote. He says, I have one rule.
Yeah.
Everyone fights. No one quits, and if you don't do your job, I'll kill you myself.
Yeah, holy shit. What a weird reference to, like, the 40K commissars will shoot their own men if they decide to retreat. Like, I'll shoot you in the back.
morale check. We'll just kill a guardsman, and then they'll get back in line.
It's fucked up. Yeah, they're just bodies.
They go on this crazy op into, like, the desert planet, and they see all types of different newer, like, flying types of bugs. Bug beetles.
Yo, that was wild. The dude getting his head fucking cut off.
The gore in
Holy
this
shit.
movie is like top tier.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
Also,
they
the
show,
dude getting his brain sucked out was very disturbing.
they show the gore 100%. Even on the propaganda videos, they even
Right.
show you the dead bodies.
Yeah.
definitely.
Wild.
The
But
bug.
they censor like other weird things. Like there's
They
weird...
censored it killing the cow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was weird.
It's like, yeah, you can see a human get murdered, but not an animal.
Yeah, I don't know what that was interesting. Who
And,
knows?
Those
But they
bugs.
did show a dead dog, which was awful.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. They just
Yeah.
panned
The
over
only
it.
good bug's a dead bug. His dog's dead.
Yeah,
Like-
for real.
Yeah, still using them for propaganda. I mean, those beetles, they shoot flamethrowers at people.
Shit, that
Like
was
he's
wild.
like, Tower, get down here. They
Fucking
get
melts
fucking
you.
immolated.
Yeah, that shit is crazy. Okay, do we have favorite scenes then? There's a lot of shit that happens in here.
my favorite scene is when Ace is like, Sergeant, why the fuck would we need a
I
knife?
love this.
And he's like, Sir, if you can't use your arm, then you can't shoot your gun. Put your hand on that wall. Throws the knife directly at him, and that scene has stuck with me since I was like 6 years old.
That scene's in the book too.
Yeah.
That's like one of like the only ones that's like actually in the book also.
That was my favorite scene. I also like the scene where they find the bug, and like the brain bug that sucks the brains out of people, and they want to use it for intelligence. And he's like, let it be known that a guy named Zim found the brain bug. And they're like, Zim? He's like, yeah, good job, Sergeant. It's not Sergeant. It's Private. He like deranked himself so he could be in the fucking
right.
fight.
I forgot about that. He even told him at the beginning that he couldn't go because of his ranking.
Yeah, Dean Norris, Hank
So
Schrader.
he decided to go.
Yeah.
Dean Norris, Hank Schrader says that.
Yeah. Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of scenes that I really like just shooting into the hardened, like the shitting of the giant like bug, and then just throwing a grenade into it and then blowing it up was pretty awesome. But like, I really like. But favorite actual scene is at the very end when they have the brain bug out and they're like, what does it feel? And they ask, they
it's
ask
really
him, like, what does it feel? And he
cheesy.
says, it's afraid. It's afraid.
They're like yelling about it. I love that.
I mean, and this kind of speaks more to like the fascistic tendencies of this society as well. Like, our enemy is afraid of us. Good.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
they should fear us because we are the superior species. Social Darwinism.
Do you have a favorite scene?
I'm still thinking about mine. Someone else go first.
Well, I love the scene where the roughnecks was he a sergeant or is he a lieutenant? He gets introduced and everybody is like, they glorify him. They're like, he is God in our unit. Like, don't you talk bad about him. Yeah. And this is really like, this happens all the time when you see military units in like popular media. They always have this one person, and the reason why they care so much is because he actually humanizes a lot of them in a positive way. Mm-hmm. But it's also bad because he wants to serve himself. So he's like, I do care about these people, but also like, you're all just working for a bigger cause. Mm-hmm. And so he's a weird character because you want to look up to him, but it's also not the best thing.
There's that scene where one of his men gets captured by the flying things and is about to impale him. He takes the sniper and shoots him, and he says, I'll expect anyone else to do the same for me.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
later-
he makes Rico do it.
Yeah, Rico, you know what to do, and he's like looking away as he shoots his sergeant.
Oh my god! Oh my god! It's the Wesley Snipes meme where he's like tearing up as he's like shooting him. Yeah, that's pretty much that. That was probably good. And then when they get overwhelmed in that area, there's just so many that come over the wall, and they are just like they're kicking the shit out of these bugs until they get dispatched. It's actually a pretty tense moment of them like getting evacuated, and then the officer he fights with earlier in the film shows up to save him, along with his ex-girlfriend, who's like, oh hey, it's fucking Rico. And then like they pick him up, and then you realize that he becomes the new guy in charge, and then it becomes his Roughnecks.
Yeah, and he uses the same lines as his last predecessor.
So it was cool to see him become that, but also you're just like, well, you're just gonna keep killing. This is the machine you're in.
I'm here until you die or find someone better.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I thought of my favorite scene. I think my favorite scene is actually the beginning shower scene where you have all the men and women just showering together. Everything's totally normal. And I like that for two different reasons. One of the reasons being is that they sort of dissolve the idea that men and women are separate from each other, because, people have been societally programmed to believe that there are differences. I mean, biologically, sure, there are differences between males and females, but at the same time, in this case, they're still people, and that's all they're represented as in this movie, which brings me to my second point, is that it sort of dissolves the individuality from them, which brings me back to the idea of collective. It doesn't matter if they're men or women. There are people there to serve a certain cause and do a certain job, and that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter if somebody has certain genitals and somebody doesn't. It doesn't matter any sort of relationship they might come to with each other. It really just matters that they are people. That's it. I think that was interesting.
It was very heavily merit-based for them. As far as like when they would get promoted and stuff like that, he's like, yo, that's a badass bug kill, we're promoting you. It's like anytime they did something wild like that, they would get promoted. And so that was like their goal, was to do that. And then like you said, they're erasing a lot of individuality by creating this collective that you become a part of, which exists today in modern military. They do that in the Marines and the Army. They want you to be this one thing that becomes like you are the part of this larger force.
Yeah, and of course, because of our society and how we were taught and raised, there is still that separation between men and women, as seeing them as different.
Right.
But ideally, yes, everyone is simply another part, a smaller part of the bigger whole.
Go ahead.
And with them taking part into that collective and going full force into it, by the end of the movie, when they're all ranked up, they're now the child posters.
For
the propaganda
poster
video.
child?
A poster child, sorry.
Child posters.
Poster child for the propaganda they use. So they're like, you could be like Captain Ibanez.
Yeah.
Or like,
and they show them
Lieutenant Rico.
Oh my god.
So they basically played into that and they succeeded. So now they're going to be used as the face for it.
Yeah. The weirdest part about this creation of this army or this force that they want to create as just one is that it doesn't match up at all with the way the United States deals with people, like, and how we represent ourselves to the rest of the world. They rely on individuality really heavily, but when it comes to the military, they want to indoctrinate you. So it's like these two concepts don't go well together. And so like this is what's been a large thing of people arguing, is that this is not working anymore. People are realizing that the military is doing that on purpose, and now we're getting into the realm of like, we do not want to have a militarized state. And so this is what's being a large concept discussed now in politics, and it's weird that it's still relevant to like watch a 30-year-old movie and it's still relevant. And then you watch another movie was like 20 years before that's still doing the same shit. So it's like you keep having these concepts show up again.
The cycle repeats itself.
We don't learn. We just get better, cooler stuff.
Yeah. Unless you do learn, and then you break the cycle. I'm definitely calling back to our last episode about Enter the Void. But anyways.
What do you guys rate this film?
Did you say your favorite scene?
Yeah.
What was your favorite scene?
The It's Afraid scene, or the one where he like throws the grenade into the big bug and shoot a hole in it. That was pretty cool. But I mean, I like this movie a lot. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do you guys have a rating for this movie?
I'll probably give it like an 8, like 8.5. It's just fun to watch. I've seen it so many times now that I was just like, there's smaller things you can notice. You can pick out a lot of it. But I just like the ridiculous scenes where it's like ultra violent. You have them being really comical, and then suddenly it's super serious. And some moments, like when he straight up gets corporal punishment, and then they're like, oh, time to kill some bugs. Like that's the next scene. You're like, oh, this is wild. But it's probably because I watched it so young. And I was just like, I've seen this so many times that I was like, we got to talk about it a little more.
This movie was like a 10 out of 10 when I was a kid because boobs,
same.
guns, and blood.
Oh, right, yeah.
But now coming to it, I'm going to knock it a 0.5. It's a 9.5 because it's smart when it wants to be and it's dumb when it wants to be.
True.
So that to me shows that it knows what it's going for, and it doesn't. It's kind of a weird blend of smart and like it's like based and cringe at the same time.
I don't think they took themselves too seriously.
Like the gore is really good, the effects are really good, and there's very little character development, but I don't care because I'm enjoying what I'm seeing on the film. And it's a movie that I think if I watch this 10 years from now or 30 years from now, I'm still going to have fun with it.
Yeah, that's fair. The violence is also very jarring when you see it because it's just so weird and
I was very
grotesque.
surprised that the CGI held up.
Yeah, me too. For the bugs.
I would probably also rate this about an 8. I think an 8 sounds pretty good. I've always liked this movie. It's super fun. I've only appreciated it more now after reading the book, and I absolutely recommend that if you like this movie, definitely check out the book if you're interested in like military philosophy and just kind of like seeing an entirely different society and how it functions and someone else's like perception on that. But
there is also a animated Starship Troopers show that they came out with on Netflix, which is pretty good.
There's also an RTS coming out.
There is
this
also
year, which
wow,
I'm really a real-time strategy game that's coming out that I'm very excited for.
Okay, all right.
I'll have to go a little lower than y'all. I'm probably gonna give this movie between a 6.5 and a 7. Because I think it was definitely like entertaining. Like it's a lot of fun to watch, and I enjoyed like the political commentary. But at the same time, like the first hour of the movie I thought was kind of useless. Like I definitely get that they were trying to make you care about these characters, but like I didn't really care about the characters after the first part of the movie. They were still just sort of like very shallow people to me who are being inspired by very shallow motivations.
They should have started with their graduation.
Yeah,
that would have been a good
just
starting
gone straight
point.
into like them being in wartime, I think I would have appreciated this a lot more. And like I appreciated the humor and the satire, but at the same time, like I don't know, I always have this thing about mood mixing is I feel like it can be very delicate, like it's difficult to make something serious and comedic at the same time, and I think they did well in certain parts. But I also feel like some of the comedies sort of drew away from the seriousness of the topics they were discussing. And I wish that they went into a little more depth with these topics as far as discussing the culture of war.
It's very surface level.
Ooh,
yeah, it is it's a shallow movie, but it does introduce these topics. And I also think that if you go into this movie not understanding the topics, you probably won't grasp them when they do show up. Because I kind of, have an understanding of the military-industrial complex, so I have certain opinions about this movie. But if I didn't, I think this would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and the thing is, when this movie came out, everyone saw it as a cheesy sci-fi action movie.
Yeah, because it was a mainstream film.
And it wasn't until years later that analysts were like, this is actually very smart, but you have to look kind of for it.
I'm guessing the guy who made it had a lot of opinions from the studio where they're like, you have to make it look this way so that people will enjoy it in the mainstream media. So it does handle topics not so well. And the jarring comedy to violence was very apparent in the beginning there. And I agree, it didn't do that well. So it's like to see it mixed together kind of fucked me up.
It's more violent than the book is too.
Also,
the book has very little combat in it.
Yeah,
like they don't get to, they do it like a couple times, like, and and it kind of gets into it. Most of it is like philosophy and exploring this society and how it works and stuff.
Well, I think that's about it. I'll just leave it at this. If you want to hear us talk about 2 other sci-fi bangers, check out our previous episodes on Titan AE and the Chronicles of Riddick, because those were a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, true. We keep choosing random sci-fi films.
Slowly becoming a sci-fi horror
Oh,
podcast.
man.
I mean,
this one's pretty. There's a lot of horror elements in this one, though. Swarms
Yeah.
of insects killing all your friends.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
I always feel like sci-fi and horror kind of go hand
They
in
go very
hand.
close. Yeah,
Like
these are
there's a
meant
lot
to
of
be.
horror movies that are very sci-fi, and there's a lot of sci-fi movies that are very horror, and they always kind of
True.
go together.
Also, if you want a more
Peanut butter and jelly.
more extreme version, I'm always going to recommend Warhammer 40K to people because it is
Oh.
Fucking
ridiculous.
nerd.
Well,
Nerd.
it is.
Aye.
You will get into it and be like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" And as you get more and more into whatever lore they've created, you'll realize that it's just a more extreme version of what we've described here. Is like their indoctrination into whatever society where they're like, "No, the space marine, all they live for is the violence of the war that happens in the future." So it's like
Jeez.
you should definitely get into some of those books.
Yeah, yeah. 40K is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Everyone's an asshole in that universe.
Everybody, there's no
Everybody.
good guys
There's
in
no
that.
good
There's
guys
no
in
good guys.
40K.
Also, you have the Tyranids, which is equivalent to what we saw
Yeah,
in,
pretty
in
much.
the bug menace that they have a hive mind and they're like relentless.
All right, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
Oh,
take us
I'm
home.
gonna take you guys home. I'm gonna open the door. Get your jacket, Justine.
I got it. Wait, I
Okay.
left my purse.
Oh shit. Okay.
I'm going barefoot.
Okay, I got my purse. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for checking out this episode. We're bringing down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. The dancing is happening right now. I'll just mention it real quick. If you would like to support us, check out our Patreon, where $2 a month you could recommend us a piece of horror media to review. We'll definitely take it into consideration. If you'd like to know when episodes are released, please hit the follow button on Spotify as well as Apple Podcast. Make sure to stay up to date with us on our social media. That's Facebooks, Twitters, and Instagrams. I'm uploading more stuff every day, so check it out. I also will recommend buying some merch because that helps out the podcast a lot. Rep our shit. Wear a hat. Buy a t-shirt. It is on our Teespring, which is in our bio on our Instagram as well as our Facebook. So please, thank you for all your support, and shout out to our patrons. Thank you.
Love
Hey.
you.
Love you. I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
I'm Justine.
And I'm John. Thank you.